Good morning, everyone. Thank you for joining us. Come on in, come on in. Welcome, everybody. Come on in, welcome. Thank you, everybody, for joining us. Come on in. You guys ready to have some fun today? Come on in, welcome, everyone. Thank you for joining us. As you're coming in, feel free to turn on your video. This is going to be an interactive session, so we're going to have lots of fun. We'd love to see you. We're all about engagement today. This is going to be a fun 1 hour of your time, so feel free to turn your video on as you're hopping in here. Ryan, welcome. Sabrina, welcome. Sarah, welcome. Nice to see you again, Sarah. Thanks for coming in, everyone. Come on in. Please feel free to share your video with us. We'd love to see you. Awesome. Welcome, welcome, everybody. Hope you're in a good mood. We're going to get diving right in just a minute. People are still coming in. Perfect. Good morning. Good morning. Ilana, welcome. Thanks for coming. Welcome, everybody. All right. I think we're ready to get started. Oh, we still got a whole crew here from 21 Toys. Thank you. Thank you all for joining us. All right. All right. Let's dive in. Do you like my song choice this morning, guys? Give me a thumbs up. Yeah? Okay, good. Awesome. Well, welcome, welcome, welcome. Thank you all for joining us. We're super excited to have you here today. As you know, we've been putting through this a series of complimentary webinars, and we've been really excited to share some great design thinking methodologies with you and some really fun tools. So again, if you're on the call today, we'd love for you to share your video just so we can see you and get to know you a little bit better. We still got a couple people coming in. So yeah, you're also, please take notes, ask questions. How we've designed today to be very interactive, but at the end of our session, so we're going from 11 to 12 o'clock, and at the end, we will stay for another 15 minutes or so for questions. So if you have more questions, please write them down and we'll bring them up near the end. So Sodi, welcome. Please go ahead and turn on your videos if you're able to, because we'd love to see your face. This is all about engagement and we'd love to see you. All right, so let's dive right into designing to delight. Again, welcome for those of you who are just coming in. Perfect. So our goal today is really simple. We want to be able to really show you how to design the most amazing employee and customer experiences, hey, without thinking of what to do next, where to start, and most importantly, you know, during these crazy times without blowing your budget. Would anybody agree that we don't want to blow our budget, right? Time is money. We want to do things strategically. We want to make sure that we're maximizing our time, we're maximizing our efforts. And that's really what designing to delight is all about. I always say, if time or money were no object, what would you do to create some phenomenal experiences for people? And so I'm really excited about my guest today, but want to really bring it back to Disney. We've talked a lot about Disney. What got you here today? You've probably seen a lot of our marketing. You know, Disney does it impeccably, right? They've done it well. They've been doing it well since the 50s. And what you do so well is that you want to see that they want to see you again and again, and they want to bring your friends. That's their whole philosophy with Disney, is they want to make sure that people are loyal for life and crafting they're crafting memories and stories for people that are going to stick with them for lifetimes. And so if you stay till the end, and we hope you do, like I said, we'll be done by 12 o'clock. Might stay a little bit extra for a couple extra questions, but we will be happy to give you a little extra template that you can take with you. So let me introduce you. I'm so thrilled and excited to introduce you to our guest today, Almira Kuzin. Almira, I'm so excited to have you. Almira is the vice president right now of Phoenix Global Retail. She was the vice president of Roots North America, also the vice president of sales and strategy for Holt Renfrew, and the National Director of Sales for Guess and Marciano, which are well-known brands. You all know those brands. And so she's had an impact on our global retail environment for years and years and years. So proud to know her. Really, I've known her for 2 decades, so I'm pretty excited that she's rubbed off on me a little bit. But she's been recognized as one of the top 100 most successful women in Canada. And she's a well-respected global speaker. Today, she's actually joining us from Dubai. So Almira, thank you so much for being here. If I call you Ali during the presentation, it's just because I love you, but thank you so much for joining us today.
Oh, listen, I'm thrilled to be here, and I am unfortunately in a hotel room because I'm in beautiful Dubai, and it's 7 o'clock in the evening, but I've been excited all day, not just because I want to share some of my insights, but because I actually get to partner with Crystal on this presentation. Now, I've known Crystal since she was 16 years old, and to me, she's a shining example of a person who understands customer service from a very, very young age. And because of that, she's been able to grow in her roles to create this outstanding company. So Crystal, I'm extremely proud of you and what you've been able to become and how I've been able to see you for the last 2 decades growing to this beautiful woman and create this beautiful business.
Thanks, Ali. Not so bad, huh? I appreciate that so much. You know what? And it's because of having strong mentors that has really allowed me to understand the impact of designing phenomenal employee and customer experiences. So thank you for that, because I love what I do. And I'm here today, for those of you who don't know me, I'm here today because I had a lot of people really help me and guide me in the right direction. So I'm Crystal DeCuna, the Chief Experience Officer of the Inside View. People say I have a PhD in people skills. I've had the great pleasure of being trained by the Disney Institute, Tony Robbins, John Maxwell, and many more. I've been able to lead organizations to really get some monumental customer experience recognitions on a global scale. Sales is my passion. Many people think of sales as the scary 5-headed monster. I believe helping is the new selling, and you know, when we're selling a product or service, we're really trying to improve somebody's life. And so that's why I've been able to really be successful in that area. And, you know, globally recognized for our signature approach to customer experience, which I'll share with you guys in just a little bit. Now with the world of, you know, the COVID world that we're in right now, this online global platform has really been able to expand our organization so that we can reach businesses across the globe, which is so cool. And so thank you guys for being here. I appreciate every one of you. I want to share with you what is different about this webinar, because we know y'all love webinars, right? We know you've been on tons of webinars, and we know that everybody's online these days, but we've done our best to make this a little bit unique for you in that we will have an opportunity after the presentation to have some open discussions around how you can use some of the tools that we're sharing with you today. Also, we'll be able to give you the recording as well as lots of free resources in our Facebook groups later. Awesome. So Ali, you and I have had an opportunity to do a lot of things right in our career. You know, we've led organizations to achieve some great results, multi-million-dollar sales teams with retail organizations. I've had an opportunity to work in construction as well for years, and both been globally recognized for excellence when it comes to customer experience. But would you agree, Ali, that we've also learned a lot along the way? Right?
A lot of mistakes.
We've done a lot of things wrong, and that's what's really gotten us here, right? I always say we want to fail forward, we want to fail fast, and we want to fail famously, because we want to be able to learn from the things that we've you know, tried. We've hired the wrong people, we've wasted time and money on things. It's happened. One of the things that organizations and we've done as well is we've assumed that big budgets will change things. Right? Like, hey, I don't have a budget for that. And working in retail, we know all too familiar. You know, typically you're in a retail store, you don't have a huge budget to you know, create great experiences for your employees. But what can you do that's special and important and connect with emotion? And that's where we learned it from. So we've also learned that investing in marketing and other areas of the business is something that we do, but sometimes we really need to understand that it's more about investing in the people. And so that's what we've really learned as we've done things wrong. And so after doing this for years, we've discovered a couple things. We've discovered that customer experience is absolutely the most critical part of the business. You know, and we also identified 3 different types of customers. Your first customer is your internal customer. So, you know, Ilana was on one of our calls last week or the week before, and we dove a little bit deeper into that internal customer is your employee, right? And your employee has to be happy in order to create that raving fan mentality for your customer. Your second customer is really some of your internal partners. So I know we've got some people on the call from the construction industry and from the pharmaceutical industry. And so your second customer might be those colleagues and partners that you have in industries that, you know, they might not necessarily work in your office or in your Zoom office, but they're partners that are doing business with you. So your vendors, your trades, that type of thing. And then third is your actual customer, the paying customer that's bringing you money, that's, you know, having that transactional experience with you. So when I say the word customer, and when Ali and I are referring to customer, we're referring to really three different types of customer today. So your internal customers and your partners versus your actual customers. We've also learned that you can never go wrong in investing within your people. Ali, would you agree with me on that one?
Absolutely. I love the word investing because a lot of companies actually think it's an expense. We talk about payroll as an expense, but actually it's an investment, because when you invest correctly with the right people, I think that it's the most powerful tool that you actually have as a business, because those are the people that are going to bring your business to the next level. So it's actually an investment, not an expense.
Yeah, great point. Great point. And in one of our other webinar series we've got coming up, it's called Top Talent. And we talk about, you just mentioned the right people. We talk about how to hire the right people and attract the right people to you, right? So really important to, yes, you're investing financially, but you're also investing like getting the right people to the table. We've also learned that as leaders, you know, not only is it our role to create environments that are motivating and inspiring and engaging, but it's also our job to ignite and excite and delight our customers at every stage of the game and to really understand their journey. We want to inspire excellence by design and not by default. So many organizations I work with, you know, they've been doing this for 20 years, they've established in business, and a lot of these best practices have just happened by default, right? The hiring processes happen by default, the customer experiences happen by default, but now 5, 10, 20 years later, we need to start putting these design principles into it so that we can, so this is sustainable and then we can create some loyalty. And then lastly, is change must be championed by many, right? And so I've often got 1 or 2 people in an organization that come to me and say, hey, Crystal, you know, we really need to up-level our customer experience or employee engagement. But that's one person organization of 100. And so it's so critical to make sure that we've got little champions in the organization that can start to inspire and influence the entire organization. And I always say, you know, that's why I start with leaders. So our philosophy at the Inside View is ignite leaders, excite employees. Ultimately, the two will delight your customers. Awesome. So what we've discovered the hard way, you today will get a webinar template for, and so thank you for staying with us. But one of the things that we want to talk about really is, you know, COVID. We're here in this COVID world, and Walt Disney's been through it and many others have, but, you know, I've heard there's a recession. I've decided not to participate. And with COVID, you know, we're all kind of in this, we definitely are all in this together. But I think it's time to hit the reset button, you know, and you may not realize it, but when it happens, but that little kick in the teeth sometimes is the best thing for you. And I think COVID gives us all an opportunity to reset our organization so that we can start to put some foundational principles into place, and not just be customer centric in our vision statement or our mission statement, but be like live, eat, breathe, and be customer inspired from the ground up, right? From that foundation. Ali, would you agree with me here?
Absolutely.
It's a time, right? It's a time to press the reset button. And so what we did at the Inside View is we created, we pivoted like nothing else. We created a customer experience mastery program, but online. So it's a different level of engagement now. It's a little even more tangible, more concrete certification program. So we're super thrilled about it. And it's a 7-step signature approach that we've been recognized for. But what we're going to dive in today is really the design to delight part. And so this is an opportunity to really design these experiences and craft them and customize them and curate them so that they provide that experience that you're all looking for. So when it comes to designing to delight, like I said, employee experience and customer experience, I know I mentioned partner in there. And so today we're really going to kind of dive into the employee and the customer, but you know, your partner would kind of fall under that employee experience. And now, Ali, I know you and I chatted, and I'd really love to know, you know, about a time where you in your career where you said, hey, this is non-negotiable. We need to fix the experience, whether it's employee experience or customer experience. This is the time we need to make that change. So can you tell me a story about a time where that was, you know, very evident for you?
Sure. I think that from what you told me, there's a lot of leaders on the call.
Mm-hmm.
And part of our leadership mission is to actually change the results. And so I can't speak to one specific moment, because I think every time I'm hired as an executive or as a regional, they've always asked me to make a difference and make a change. But there's one particular division that I was responsible for back in my guest years, because I spent 9 years with them. I ran the Marciano division. So understand that Marciano existed in all of North America, in the States as well as in Canada. And we kept on winning. We had outstanding results, and we were constantly beating the US with square footage that was half the size as the States. And people say, okay, you know what? You probably have more traffic. You have Eaton Center, you have Yorkdale. But actually we didn't. We had less traffic, yet we were able to double the sales, and they constantly asked me how and why. Crystal constantly says the word curate, design, but what she's actually saying is be thoughtful. Be thoughtful about the process, and that's all this was. So with Marciano being what it was, we knew that with the traffic that's half of the US, we had to make sure that the customers were loyal to us and they were coming to us constantly. Not Nordstrom's, not our other competitors. They needed to come to us. They need to come to me. They need to come to my team. So when we talk about customer loyalty, it isn't transactional. We never thought of it as a transaction. We thought of it this way. Now, I'm sure some of you, believe that saying hello is a wonderful thing, but I want you to think about it like a party, and this is the way I taught them. It's when you're having a party and you're expecting 30 people to come through your door in an hour. Do you just open the door and say hello? Because most retailers just do that. They say hello and they just leave you there. But the rule in our organization, and certainly on my team, is that no, they're a guest in your house. You have to treat them as that. So you say hello, you give them a warm welcome. You usually put the person that's most perky and happy to open the door because you're too busy. But what's really important is you always come back to them. You ask them how they're doing, what's important to them, how's their day. You get to know them personally. You get to ask them about their children. You build a relationship. The relationship and the loyalty doesn't happen at the cash when you're asking them for their loyalty number. It happens it happens 5 minutes after they enter, when you actually engage with them in a very casual way. With that approach, the company average for loyalty in Marciano was 60. Canada was clocking in 85% loyalty for every transaction. People weren't just coming to us to buy clothes. They were coming to visit us because we created that emotional connection. We are the brand. And the people that we hired were reflective of the brand, in the way that they dress, in the way they communicated, the way they behaved. So recruitment is really, really important. We had the right people who had that warmth about them, who wanted to have a relationship above and beyond a transaction. So for us, this is a non-negotiable for me as a leader, is that every company I go to, it's about creating that relationship with the customers and with our internal customers, which is the employee as well.
Awesome, Ali. And that brings such a good point, because when you're designing these experiences, that thoughtfulness is a non-negotiable, right? You have to actually take the time as a leader to say, hey, leaders are so busy these days. Would you agree? Leaders, are you busy? Right? Leaders are busy, and it takes time and discipline to be able to say, no, wait a minute, I got to take the time out to invest in kind of designing these experiences and training them to be able to greet the way you want to be able to greet every customer, right? And we all know as leaders, like if I was to walk into a location, being with Danny Leather for 15 years, if I was walking into a store, every customer was getting greeted. But I needed to make sure that even when I left, every customer was getting greeted. And so if they saw me doing that, then there's that leadership by example, right? Ali, I got to hear about your story about this lovely lady named Lisa, and you designed a pretty phenomenal experience for Lisa. So let's share with our audience today what that experience is all about.
So I had a really great leader in the past in my guest years. His name was Greg Moreau, and he constantly said, culture is created by the stories we tell.
Mm.
And those stories we tell are really, really important to not only our consumers that are customers, but our internal customers as well too. And it's really important when we talk about that connectivity, that emotional connection, that your employees feel that. Because when your employees feel that, they're able to repeat that behavior and give that back to the customer. But as you were talking, Crystal, you were talking about leadership, and it starts with you. So for me, every single moment counts. And what I mean by that is that I want you to, I'm not sure how many of you are married, how many of you are engaged, but how many of you had that experience when somebody asked you that question, or when you asked that question, you put a lot of thought into it. Well, do you ever think back to the time that you were promoted and how that was for you? Do you remember, I mean, I've had this experience where I was promoted and they just shoved the contract in my face and said, hey, here's your salary, here's your start date, yeah, your office is down the hall, and off you go, okay? That was kind of like, wow, that's like, this is the biggest moment for me, and this is how I'm getting promoted as a district manager. It didn't feel quite right. So I want to design a way where people will never forget that moment. Because when their customers come through the door and they're talking about that wedding, that engagement, that special moment in their life, they're going to remember that person who helped them dress. Now, I come from apparel, so I'm speaking to my experience, but who helped them pick their engagement outfit, who helped them, create confidence within themselves and the way that they looked for those other moments that were very important in their life. So Lisa, who's been with the company for 14 years, I sat down with her early on in my career at Roots. This is a Roots example. And she said, my biggest dream has always been to become a department manager for customer service. I said, okay. And I said, Lisa, you have the hardest job in the world because you spend 8 hours a day listening to customers scream at you. And so it takes a special person to want to deal with customers like that. But I wanted to make sure that her moment was really, really special. She never forgot it. So what I did is we got helium balloons. The big balloon over there, I was gonna link a video, but it was too long. It says congratulations, and with that there was an attachment that says congratulations, you're a manager of the department. She was with us for 14 years, but on her 10th year with us, after she obviously demonstrated she was more than capable, this is the way that she found out. She opened up a box. I said, I'm waiting for a delivery. That's that big cardboard box in the back. And I said, I'm gonna need you to open that. Just pull me out of my meeting when you get that box. So I had somebody film her from behind. And when she opened that box and she saw the balloon, and that's the way she found out she was promoted. We had the team behind the stanchions over there screaming and cheering her. And we celebrated her victory, her win. And she posted this all over social. So that's a moment that she never forgot. And that's a moment that she chose to share on her Instagram. And it's the story that she tells everybody, because that's the greatest moment of her career. So if Crystal, if I show you another picture or another moment, this is Tim and Sean. And when they were promoted to regional directors, I remember this clearly because when I first started at Roots, I asked both of them, what's your dream job? What's your dream? They said, we want to be regional directors one day. We've been district managers for 6, 7, 8 years. And we've never crossed that threshold. I said, okay. So the moment they did cross that threshold, I want to do something magnanimous. Now, we talk about budget all the time. Every company talks about budget, but it's not about just doing great things. It's how do you do those great things in more meaningful ways. And something as simple as getting them a cake, or if you want to flip over to the next picture, or going to the dollar store and actually buying material to decorate the office that I had built for them. They didn't even know where they were getting offices, but I had the construction team build 2 offices side by side, and we decorated them. So they'll never forget that moment, not only when they were promoted, but that first day that they got keys to their office to start their new job. And again, culture is created by the stories we tell. They tell the story. And I have to tell you that every single time they promoted somebody on their team, it was as big as this, because it is about the way you make somebody feel. They understand my expectations, how I want to make their team feel. Their team understands how I want to make the customers feel. And this obviously doesn't start with my direct reports. It actually ends with my team. These are my store managers and my colleagues from head office. When we do meetings, when I did meetings, everybody was included. Everybody had to have that same type of message and get excited and build. So it's about creating happiness and celebrating together as a team. Do not discount that ever, because I could guarantee you that that will create loyalty to you as a leader, to your brand. So I'm going to give you some stats. So at Gas at 9 years, I always had the highest engagement. I averaged, and I was very sad. My worst score was 92% for engagement for the team. In most places, in fact, the last 15 years, I've had, I would say 100% retention. I've chosen to terminate some people, yes, but I've had nobody quit on me. And this goes with the belief that they understand that I will do anything and everything for them. But in return, they do that for me and they do that for their customers. So here are some pictures of the team at Roots, which is the last corporate company I work for. And I have to say that this red and white shot over there, we were celebrating a record-breaking year. We had a record-breaking year that year. We had 2 consecutive record-breaking years with 100% retention for my direct reports and very little turnover in the store level. So it really demonstrates that it's important to make your people feel good, because they can't make their customers feel good if they feel like crap. So I want you to keep that in mind when you're designing the way that you're going to create these experiences for your customer and for your employees.
They feel empowered, right, Ali? Like you've literally made them a part of the conversation. You've given them that power to be able to design experiences for other people as well. So and this is how they get inspired to do these things, right? So now, Lisa, receiving that box with balloons in it, what did that cost you? $10, $15, right? The cake, maybe $30. I mean, really, if money or time is no object, what could we do to design experiences? Now, right now we're talking about our employees, but the same applies to our customers. And we'll dive a little bit deeper into that, but it's the same concept. It doesn't necessarily take those big budgets that we're all after, even that big time that we think, oh my gosh, that's going to take so much time. It takes really being thoughtful, as you mentioned, and carefully curating it. And so, again, I'm bringing it back to Disney. You can design and create and build the most wonderful place on earth, but it takes people to really make that dream a reality. And so that brings us into the tool that I'd love to share with you all today. I know a lot of you here are from multiple different webinars that we've done over the last little while, and we keep bringing it back to customer journey mapping. And so customer journey mapping is probably one of my favorite design thinking tools. And so for those of you not familiar with the design thinking world, design thinking is a methodology that allows us to map out the experience in different ways. So there's empathy maps, there's journey maps, there's many different types of maps that we can use. But design thinking is kind of that overarching methodology. And then within that design thinking toolbox, there's all these different tools. And so the one that we use with organizations most is customer journey mapping. And the idea of a customer journey map is to really be able to draw out that journey, but most importantly, identify the emotional connection, the emotional experience that particular person is having with the brand at every step of their journey, so that we can identify kind of those moments of truth where the journey is phenomenal or the journey is not so phenomenal, and how can we adjust and tweak and kind of make it better. And so that brings us to the 5 key questions you want to really ask yourself before you start diving into the journey mapping process. So, these phenomenal experiences that Ali was able to create with her people was by intention. And so you really want to ask yourself a couple of these questions, depending on the size of your organization, whether you've got 10 people in your organization or thousands. The principles are the same. What are the current challenges that my business is facing? So is it employee retention? Is it employee engagement if you're really coming at it from an employee perspective? Or is it sales? Or is it online sales? Or is it, customer satisfaction? Is it, I've had everything from, hey, we want to be the number 1 on TripAdvisor with an organization. So that was their biggest challenge, is that they didn't care about anything else. Their goal was to be number 1 on TripAdvisor. And we did that. And so number 2 is, what type of journey do we really want to work on? So remembering that, we can work on the end-to-end journey. End-to-end journey means like from before they're ever a customer till the very end, till after they've purchased, and then even further, maybe after 1 year of dealing with your product or service. So for example, in the home building industry, before they were a customer, we were working with them a year before they were a customer to kind of nurture that and find out where they were and how we were able to get them. Through the building process, we were with them, and then we mapped that end journey of a year after they've been in their house. What does that look like? Right? So that's what an end-to-end journey is all about. Or we can do a specific portion of the experience. So Right now, we're working with organizations that are really focused on the online world. And so we really want to focus on, we use ethnographic research, which means that you're actually following that customer live. And so they can go online and they're following how people are using the website. Where are they going? Where are they getting frustrated? Where are they dropping off? Where are they leaving things in their shopping cart? Right? So that's a specific portion of the experience. So taking a look at your product, your service, your brand, and your people. And do you want to just work on that specific part? So for example, the hiring or the onboarding or that first 21 days. I love working on the first 21 days with a new person coming on board, because that's when you can really make an impact. And then what is that after 21 days? What does that 3-year, 10-year, 20-year experience looks like with your team? I have a colleague who recently was with a large bank and with them for just over 30 years and now said goodbye, but has probably been feeling not so appreciated there for the last 10 years. And so, it's really important to be able to, if they were able to map out that experience, then they were able to identify, hey, we need to make her feel amazing any day over 21 days. We want to make sure that she feels committed and engaged to us, because what was working then is not going to work now. Who's the right person to start with? Again, do you want to start with your internal customer, your external customer? Get specific on who you want to start the mapping process with. This is not a one and done. Once you do one map, you're going to want to do others, because once you identify that visual experience and what the information it gives you, and you've actioned it and you've seen how the impact affects your business, then it's kind of one of those things you get addicted to. What type of data do you need to gather for this? So this is what you really want to be able to understand, because it's not a guessing game. You want solid facts and data and numbers to be able to put into your journey map so that you can really identify, where the areas of opportunity. And then who's going to be the champion in the organization? Is there a small team that you can put together to really impact? And this is where I would say staying away from silos is really important. A lot of organizations, again, depending on the size, work in silos. And so we want to be able to bring everybody together. So perhaps it's one leader from each department that comes together to champion this cause, but be very specific on who is going to stay committed to this process, who is going to be able to really champion it. And so, Ali, I know you've had an opportunity to map these customer journeys. Tell us a little bit about what some of the benefits you've seen by mapping these journeys.
Well, what's great is that when you do this, you bring a team together, and not just a sales team, but you're able to collaborate and not work in silos by connecting the sales, marketing, and operations team. You work together as one. More brains, more ideas, you become more powerful as a company. So to really be thoughtful in the process, you have the ability to bring other people into the mix and even become even more creative and give that brilliant experience that you all want for your customer. Understanding who your customer is and what they need, creating and nurturing that emotional connection, because again, I'm going to show you pictures and how you can create that emotional connection, how you can nurture senses so that way they remember you and you impact them in a way. Identifying moments of truth and adjusting. You're never going to bat at 1,000. It's just not going to be possible. So just be honest with yourself. And I know, Crystal, you're going to dive into that a bit more, and knowing to adjust. It's okay, be honest. And that's your moment of truth. And predicting behaviors of getting ahead of the customer's expectation. We know now COVID is making a massive impact on us. And where are people having to go without choice? If you love brick and mortar the way that I do, because I'm a definite brick and mortar woman, I'm forced to go online. So anticipating that, getting ahead of it, and how are you going to make that experience exceptional even online?
That's fantastic. I mean, there's so many more benefits of customer journey mapping as well. These are just a few, but we want to show you that, journey mapping, it's not just a lot of Post-its on a wall. It's really about diving deep and getting clear on what the action you want to take. And so when we work with organizations, I focus on the 7 stages of customer journey mapping. And each one of these stages, not only are they important, but the order in which you do it is pretty important as well. And some stages I spent a lot longer on than others. And it really depends on the size and the type of product or service that you're selling. But one thing I want to make clear is that this principle applies to absolutely any product, any service, any industry, because the principles are set. Like they're really simple principles. You might have to adjust and tweak a little bit, but for the most part, you know, the stages are pretty clear. Is I design your ideal customer persona. So again, I'll show you some examples in a minute of the personas, but you want to get clear on who your ideal one is. And so I'm just thinking of the people on this call right now. We've got 21 Toys. We've got a few members here from 21 Toys. And, you know, your ideal customer persona, is it that facilitator? Is it a school? Is it what type of school? Is it a Catholic school? Is it a public school? Is it elementary school? Is it a high school? So getting super uber clear on who that persona is so critical. Get clear on the journey. So again, end to end or specific. I talked a little bit about that. And then how you're going to gather the data is, are you going to get voice of employee data or voice of customer data? So voice of employee data could come from surveys, could come from focus groups, could come from mystery shops. Voice of customer data would be the same, but that data is so critical. So voice of employee data, there's a great tool that I use called Office Vibe. So write that one down. It's the same tool Disney uses to measure their employee experience. Voice of customer data, I mean, focus groups are something I absolutely love. We've done some cool virtual focus groups lately, so they're kind of neat way of doing it. But you really get that that transparent information from people because people want to talk. They want to tell you how good it is. And sometimes surveys, you know, surveys are great. I use Customerville as a really cool survey platform that we use. But surveys will also only give you so much. They're only going to give you the information of the people that take the surveys, right? So that's why I love focus groups. It's probably my favorite tool to gather that data. Then we start to design the actual journey. So I'll show you a couple pictures in just a minute, but we design the journey that they go on based on that data, based on what they've told us. This is what I do. That's how we design the actual experience. And then we engage everybody in our team, whether you're a frontline employee or whether you're a leader. Everybody's engaged in that mapping of the journey. And so you're able to identify, like, you know, everybody from your frontline, for example, it could be somebody that's working in housekeeping to your CEO. The housekeeping perspective is going to be very different than a CEO's perspective. And so when they're able to get involved in that mapping process, it's phenomenal. And here, actually, there's a great book. I know I mention this book often, but it's called Driven to Delight. It's the Mercedes-Benz experience. Probably my favorite book on journey mapping. But what it does is it shows how Mercedes-Benz is really focused on, you know, getting every single person involved. And then we want to identify moments of truth. And we want to design moments of truth are where the emotions are either heightened or they drop, right? So what are those moments of truth that really help to identify things? And then last is design a tangible action plan, right? So what are the dates? Who are the people? You start to really put things in process, because if you don't do that, then it's just a bunch of Post-it notes on a wall. And so you're really, that last piece is so, so critical. It's what's that action that has to happen. And so, Ali, I know, you know, I've had the great pleasure of being able to experience Roots from different perspectives and right in your retail stores. But tell us a little bit about how you've used journey mapping and really getting inside that customer's head to design some phenomenal experiences.
Well, I think that I've always had amazing partners, and the marketing team is really the genius behind a lot of this, but they always included the operations team when it came to how we want the store to show up. And for us, we wanted to deliver an experience that would be very, very different. And when we redesigned stores, and I did 43 projects in 2.5 years with Roots, we decided to be just a little bit more creative. With the same budget as if opening a regular store, we just allocated funds differently, because at the end, especially when we're entering a new market, and this was Boston when we did a pop-up store in Boston, we needed to make people remember us. And I think this is where a lot of retailers really struggle. What makes you different? What's your differentiating factor that's going to keep a customer coming back? In our particular case, this was a very unique store because it was actually only 25% retail, where we sold in the back. and 75% experience for the customer, which is crazy. When I first heard of this concept, I was like, are you mad? How am I possibly going to hit these targets with this?
Right.
But in fact, that actually happened to be a store that was performing exceptionally well. Why? Because we created an experience where the customers kept on bringing more people to see our design. And it was as simple as we wanted to sell socks. Well, you know what? Now you could put socks on a peg wall when you open up a new market, or you could hang them off of a ceiling like this and do something.
How cool is that?
We had a lineup of people just taking pictures. We created Instagram moments in these new locations because we wanted people to know our brand and what we stood for. And it didn't hurt sales. In fact, our online sales in this particular location was phenomenal. We did something similar in much smaller scales in places like Yorkdale. And when we opened Yorkdale, we had some moments where we talked about our history, we talked about our brand, we talked about what was important to us and what we stood for. So to the left, you could see me sitting down. It looks like I'm in a giant sock or around a big blanket. Well, guess what, guys? Instead of spending all that money on the material, that was just wallpaper. It was simply just wallpaper that we stuck on the wall and the floor. It was something as simple as that. But again, we talk about our history and what cabin represented for us, and we created a moment where it was very social. And so a lot of people sat exactly where I'm sitting, took pictures and posted everywhere. So it's about creating brand awareness, especially in new markets, or even if you want to reinvigorate the current customer. How do you get them to keep coming back to you? Well, you got to change it up a bit. Having the same four walls, guys, come on, that's going to get a little bit boring. If you don't start to change your environment a little bit to get them excited and to create that culture, to create that buzz, to create that story, your brand will slowly fizzle out. And so this is something when I was certainly at Roots, I got very excited about, and this is a salt and pepper room. Everything was covered in salt and pepper, including the cups, including the pen, including the lamp, including the telephone. But it was just to showcase what salt and pepper meant to us, and salt and pepper was our world. So that was a way in which we talked about the senses. We also infused some woods smelling scents. So it felt like you were in a cabin. So we wanted to create a touch point for those senses. You got to touch the product, you got to see it, you got to be in it, and you got to smell it. So that was one of the strategies.
And salt and pepper is so interesting because it's such a classic part of your brand. And it could get, I remember there was a point in Roots history where it was kind of just like, okay, well, I was gifted my first pair of sweatpants because I'm not a sweatpants girl, but like I was gifted my first pair of sweatpants. My girlfriend was getting married and she gave everybody else Swarovski earrings. And for me, I got a pair of Roots sweatpants. She's like, Crystal, you have got to try these on. And so those sweatpants, it's been about 10 years. I still have them. I wear them. They've got holes in them, but I will not get rid of them because they're just the most comfortable thing. But that goes to show you that is your part of the brand was so iconic, but it was also very simple. And you've now been able to create it so that it's like classic and almost luxurious. Yeah.
But it's the same product. It's the same salt and pepper that you've seen for over 20 years, 40 years in.
Yeah.
So if you think about that, it's like, how do you make something that's 30, 40 years old cool?
Yeah.
Well, you have to think a little bit out of the box and reach the generation you're trying to sell to.
Yeah. And that really brought me to the next story I'd love for you to share is, when you're creating these experiences, how does it result in sales and what's the impact it makes to the actual, customer loyalty and the sales experience. And so, you talk about touching all the senses, and I had the luxury of having a private tour with you in this location. And my gosh, did you hit every sense? Like you touched every sense. So tell us about this experience.
Well, this is during our opening, but this was a great story because when we opened the store, we really reimagined what Roots would look like and would feel like. And if you could see in the first picture where you see the lineup of customers, well, you see those logs. Well, there's like 3,000 pieces of logs there, like small pieces, and customers were able to touch it and feel. And we designed the entire environment to feel like a cabin, but we also celebrate. That's the one thing that I think that we're missing is the sense of celebration. Now, granted, we can't gather like this right now in COVID, but there's so many different ways that you can, and using technology, you can definitely infuse that into different ways to keep the customers excited. But we always make sure that we celebrate not only with the employees, but with the customers as well too. So we celebrate through bringing musicians and artists, and we've made custom designed pieces of, like you can see the pouch where it says TC, I believe. On the side over there, we have embossing and personalization, customization. So to create something that's very unique to us that a lot of other brands aren't doing. Now, yes, people are doing that type of embroidery, but you get to do so much more than just that. And if you come to that root store, you're going to get a full lesson of the history and what they're capable of doing.
Yeah.
So
I remember the change rooms in this store. Oh my gosh, the change rooms was an experience. I don't have a picture of it, but
every single change room was in a different season. One was in winter, one was in spring, summer, and fall. And you feel like you're actually getting changed. You were naked inside, but with different backgrounds. So people kept on coming back and experiencing different change rooms as well too.
Yeah, very cool. Very, very cool. And so we talk a little bit about brand connection. So you've created this retail store, but it's more than just about the retail store, right? People are doing business with us through an omni-channel experience. And again, you're building that brand. So tell us about how you impacted Sick Kids Hospital in Toronto.
Well, the one thing that we're very deeply anchored in is our sense of charity and our sense of community and helping each other and making people feel good. That was really important. I've been blessed because to me, I had such an exceptional team at Roots, and I'm very, very proud of them, from the district managers to my operations team. And we had just a small budget, but without having to spend too much, we just took all of our excessive Christmas trees that instead of purging, we took it all and brought it to the lobby of Sick Kids, because we recognize that a lot of these kids can't even leave the hospital. So why don't we bring the outside to them and give them that experience? So not only are we appealing to our sense of taking care of our community and making people feel good, but we also brought our brand into Sick Kids. And we got a lot of attention. That wasn't the point of why we did it. We honestly did it to make the kids feel great about their lounge and their environment. So when they visited their friends, they had this experience to share. But a lot of people said, oh, who sponsored this? Well, Roots did. They came in, they did this. They wanted to create a winter wonderland for the team, and we got tremendous amount of exposure. So when you're thinking about marketing, it doesn't have to be runway models. It doesn't have to be millions of dollars. It could be things that you already own and have. It's about bringing that experience to something else and attaching it to something that you value and what your brand stands for. And for us, it's about taking care of people. And this is the way my ops team want to express their love and how they care and show care. So culture is created by the stories we tell. This was a story that was talked about for a lot of years.
Yeah, that's fantastic. Phenomenal. And so, I'm bringing it back to the Disney examples that I kind of started this webinar with. So thank you so much for sharing that, Ali. But this is it, right? Where you're creating an experience outside of the one location. And so who here has ever thought about going to Disney for Christmas? Give me a hands up or a thumbs up if you've ever kind of had that thought. Yes? No? Anybody? So I had that feeling a few years ago. Does anybody have kids? Because if you have kids, you've definitely thought of it. But going to Disney for Christmas for my family a few years ago was exciting because I thought, there's so much. Christmas is stressful, right? There's stress of buying gifts. There's stress of feeding everybody and bringing everybody to your house. And I thought, what, this year I want to kind of tap out. I want to take my kid and I want to go to Disney and I want to have a phenomenal experience. And the one thing about going to Disney is that they've built this brand that that no matter what you're spending or how you're spending it, you're going to have a magical time, or else, right? It's this persona that they've created that, and they have to live up to it. How is it that people are able to go to Disney and spend hundreds and hundreds of dollars on princess gear and feel good about it, right? They feel good about spending all their money. And so that's part of the brand. And what they've done, so again, to this mapping process, what they did, this is a map, a journey map, so to speak, from 1957. And so at the heart of everything Disney did was that theater, that film, that movie creation that Disney was so well known for. But then he brought in all these elements. So like Ali was just talking about, you know, that retail space is where Root starts, but then they are now in the hospital. I know you did an activity with the home builders with the building a house. And so there's all these little things that contribute to that overall brand experience. And so this is how they mapped out that experience way back when, that if somebody saw a movie, they were going to see a little bit about the merchandise. They were also going to hear a little bit about the comics, and they were definitely going to hear a little bit about Disneyland. Now, if somebody went to Disneyland, we know that they're going to end the rides with merchandise, but then maybe they would also kind of learn a little bit about some of the TV shows, because the rides would talk about the TV shows. Maybe they would hear the music in the during when they went to rides. So they really carefully crafted how everything would speak to each other to build the overall brand. And that's what, believe it or not, they're still doing this. They're still using this in some form 60 years later. And so I just wanted to share with you a couple of journey maps that, again, we're tight on time, so I want to go through this quickly, but you'll have this whole slide deck in the presentation. But, you know, this is IKEA's journey map. And so IKEA, one of many journey maps that they did. So they said, okay, if a customer was inspired by IKEA, perhaps with our commercial, they would come to the store. But if they were inspired because they broke their bed and they needed a new one, they're kind of unhappy, but they would still come to the store to satisfy their need. And so we started to kind of identify, okay, what's that journey? The original journey that they were going on, but the new journey was if they're inspired by us, whether it was through the catalog or whether it was through the commercials or however they saw us, you know, what does that journey look like? And so you notice that they come into the store and then they might find it challenging to actually get through the store. But then when they found that product or service, they were elated because it was beautiful. But then wait a minute, I need to buy it and I can't find it and I can't get somebody to help me. And so we started to kind of map this out, and you can see these moments of truth where things, you know, can really be adjusted. And so you as an organization have an opportunity to really make some change. Here, overall, they're leaving in that same neutral zone. But like, hey, if we were to just fix this little piece here, maybe this would all be on the higher scale. Or maybe if we were to fix this little piece here, we could end a little bit higher, right? So you start to identify these moments of truth. This is just a quick example. I won't go through this, but I know a lot of companies nowadays are online shopping and online journey mapping. And this is really, again, mapping out this emotional piece. Is we don't want to have 3 negative or unhappy pieces of parts of the experience, right? 80% of CEOs believe they deliver an outstanding customer experience. Yet only 8% of their customers agree, because if it's an outstanding experience, there's none of these, right? No red, no yellow faces, no unhappy moments in that experience. So customers expect to be happy from beginning to end. Okay, so when designing your journey, the ideal customer persona, I kind of talked a lot about this, but a couple key things to pay attention to in the ideal persona. The brands that are important to them, their pain points, what motivates them, you know, get clear on the age. But the brands tell you a lot. You know, you've got that iPhone user versus a Samsung user. You've got somebody who's, you know, a Lexus driver versus a Honda driver. There's key things about the way they shop and their brand experiences that'll really help you identify how they're going to make decisions. I've shared this slide with you before, some of you that have been on here, so I won't get into it too much detail. Again, this green line here is the journey. And so this is what I probably spend 75% of my time designing based on the data that I gather. So in this case, little Sophia had to go to the hospital, and she rode with her mom in the car. She checked in at the hospital. She went to the MRI and she saw the MRI machine. And this is where, you know, stuff hit the fan, where she was crying and upset. And clearly this was a moment of truth. Now the people and processes and backstage things that affected her experience are here. So the nurse, the MRI machine, maybe even the gentleman that designed the MRI machine are part of her back-end experience. But once you're able to identify that this is where her experience went haywire, that's when you can start and take a simple MRI machine and craft it into an experience that delights, right? Now, does this cost time or money? Maybe a little bit of time, but very little money, right? To be able to get some wallpaper and really craft an experience. But that's when little Sophia walks into this room now. Is she going to be crying? or is she going to be excited to hop in, right? So it's about those little elements of delight. So we're a little tight for time. I hope you guys are all, so let's see how many people we have on this call, and perhaps we can do a group session here just for the sake of time. Yeah, are you guys okay if we skip the breakout room, we all talk together? How's that sound? Good? Awesome. So I'll get you to unmute yourselves for me. And I'm going to ask you a question, and just put your hand up and reply as is. So the two questions are, what area of your business do you think that you'd like to start journey mapping? And really, what outcomes will you be looking to gain from your journey map? So, now that you know a little bit about it, instead of me picking on you, go ahead and put your hands up and tell me a little bit about where you think you might want to start your journey mapping process in your organization. Not all at once, just one at a time.
I'm happy to go first for the 20 Toys team. So the team is here. Just to give a little bit of a backstory. So we've been running our business for years, and we've been in a very fortunate category of, without any direct sales or marketing activity, we've been able to succeed and exist through word of mouth. And so COVID has presented us with a wonderful opportunity to really have to hone in years of knowledge of our customers and our products, but also our customers have now changed. The reality of the situation has changed, and our product has also changed. So every single part of our business has been in person. So we run in-person workshops with physical toys. And so we have been able to successfully pivot to online workshops where there are still physical toys that are being shipped to people's homes, but they connect online here. So our next challenge, and the reason the team is here, is because we are going to start building out multiple customer journeys. I would say our two priorities are the customer journey of an online workshop. So our more corporate clients who are looking to invest in their team's professional development, all the way to event planners who are looking for just like a really light touch, fun activity. So we have an interesting moment where our toys are interactive, and much like a webinar like this, we can see everyone's faces, and not just the customers, but the team that we're directly impacting. So there's just a lot more opportunities that we can continue to provide delight through our products, which I would say we're quite good at, and that's definitely where our expertise is, but start to embed more touch points on how we can actually build community and stories both before, during, and after we've run workshops. And we're currently also going to be doing journey maps for a demo version of our workshop. So we also offer free twice a month invitations for people to join wherever they're at and to play with us online to get kind of a taste of the experience.
That's awesome. Well, I've signed up for one of those. I got to get my toy in the mail soon, so I'm excited about that. But that's it, right? It's starting to take that thought process and starting to just dive in and it's all about action, because we can talk about the customer journey and we assume that our customer is going through a certain journey. Does anybody here assume that sometimes, right? We assume that they're liking it. We assume they're going one way or the other. But it's completely different when you start visually mapping it, because then you can, like, it's black and white. You can see that this is where we could do better. One organization I was working with, they were about to take away one element of the experience. They sent their home buyers letters, and at different stages of their first year. So at the spring season, at the winter season, to teach them how to take care of their home. And then all of a sudden, while we were mapping, they said, "Oh, we're not going to send that letter. We'll just send an email." Well, as we mapped the journey, that letter was so critical to the service, because if they didn't do those things at that stage in their home, their new home experience, so for example, like take care of the driveway or take care of the grass or this, that, and the other thing, and it was just another email that they probably didn't pay attention to, then their whole lawn would be brown the next year, and their furnace filter might not have been changed, and all these types of things. So the aftermath of missing that one little piece of the puzzle could directly impact that experience. So it's so important. Mm-hmm. Anybody else before we continue here?
Yes, I'll go for it.
Yes, and I'm sorry, your name, is it?
My name is Mike.
Mike, hi Mike.
Yes, I was working at Roots with Ali. I had the pleasure. And you want to talk about someone going over and beyond? When I got promoted to district manager, she certainly did make it a huge impression on myself that now I feel whenever I promote somebody, I need to get to that caliber as well. So it's something crazy that I do as well.
Great. That's
And let me
awesome.
tell you, it is, I think I've given out like 62 cakes now since I've been promoted. So it's my thing. It's my thing.
That's a lot of cakes.
Yes. So
That's a lot
my
of cakes.
journey mapping will be based on our internal customers, so our employees. So pre-COVID, everyone was so happy and so enthused to come to work. And now that we are in COVID, are in the process of kind of getting out of it, I like to think that's where we're going to be. There's a lot of true feelings that are coming out where I think companies are just missing the point of understanding that that our employees are, there's pressure points that we need to kind of identify and kind of move forward from there. So that's where I'd be, and that's where I always spend most of my time with my customers, with my employees.
And so it's a great point though, even with your employees, are we mapping that entry level employee? I think often that leadership team gets missed in mapping out that experience because it's the leaders that are doing it, right? But the leaders can really map out that leadership experience and identify how you can get more leaders or how you can get better engagement with your leaders. So just a couple of things to think about is you really want to get clear on which employee you're actually mapping, which persona you want to dive into.
Absolutely. And it is definitely the manager, the leader of each building, where you can even see in the sales where the ones who are just so anal about COVID, the way that we handle COVID in the stores, you can see it in the sales.
Right.
So I have managers that are really, really cool, calm, and collective, and their sales are a lot higher compared to the ones who are really adamant on following the procedures. Not that it shouldn't be, but as we start to loosen up, they need to loosen up as well, and I need to find that pressure point for that.
Yeah, no, that's crazy. I want to be respectful of your time, so I'm just going to do a quick little wrap up here. I hope everybody got some good takeaways. So now it's about actioning this and really starting to do something with the tools that you've learned today. And so we've got some other tools that can help you as well. As you guys know, our CX Mastery program. This program is a 1-year foundational program where we spend a good amount of time on designing to delight. It's not something you can just do in one day, but it's about changing human behaviors. And so this program is designed for leaders to be able to start really creating this foundation of experience excellence within their organization. So you'll get a little more information on this in a thank you email that we'll send out. I would also highly, highly love for all of you to participate in our CX Solutions Facebook group, where a copy of this recording will be, as well as some fun templates that you'll get to help you start the journey mapping process. And then last but not least, as you are all preparing budgets for 2021, we know that it's a tough year. If you are looking for some funding opportunities, depending on the size of your organization, the Canada Ontario Job Grant or whatever province you're in, there's one for every province in Canada. From anywhere from 50 to 80% of your training could be completely funded by the government, or 50 to 80% of it could be funded. I will say that there's a very limited amount of it. It'll probably be done by the end of September, early October in terms of funding availability. And then the next time would be released would be April if they decide to move forward. So anything from, we have diversity inclusion programs, we have train the trainer programs, we have customer journey mapping boot camps. All of them are certified programs, and they all qualify because we are a certified training provider. Lastly, save the date, September 29th. My good friend, Mark Pedipus, who is the CEO of Mark Pedipus Business Coaching, was also the former vice president of Fusion Homes. And so he's comes from the construction industry and that home building world. And he is a sales and service master. I'm so excited to have him on our call next week. So September 29th, I think that might not be a Monday, but I'm wrong. But it's September 29th at 11 a.m. and we'll also put the link in the email for you. So you've got to start with your customer experience and work backwards towards the technology, especially in our COVID world, because so many of us do it the other way. So we want to make sure that we start with the customer from the inside out. That's actually why I call the company the Inside View. Start with the customer's view and work your way out. And it's kind of fun to do the impossible. So I appreciate all of you. Thank you so much for joining us. If you'd like to stick around, Ali and I will stay around for a couple more minutes, and we're happy to answer any of your questions. There's also a survey link in the chat, so please go ahead and tell us what you enjoyed about today. We'd love your opinion. And that's it, folks. We'll see you all next week, hopefully. Have a great one. Thank you.
Okay, thanks very much.
My pleasure. If anyone's got any questions, go ahead and ask. We'll stick around for a bit. Go ahead, Ilana.
So I have a question which actually is a bit meta. So we're kind of at step one. So there's a lot of kind of basic things that we're going to start rolling out. One of them is sending things like surveys during a workshop. So we run online empathy toy workshops with our physical empathy toys. So we have paid customers who bring us in for their teams. I'm pretty sure that once we start asking people to fill out a survey or to report, we can find a delightful way for that to connect with the outcomes of their team. I'm not as worried about that for the workshop delivery, but similar to this webinar, how do you design to delight for the things that, not like it's like making like medicine taste like sugar. Like it's like, how do we get people to do the actions we want them to do that might be counter to what they want to do, like people just wanting to jump off and not fill out surveys, for example.
Yeah, so there's lots of different ways. So you'll notice that you've been on a couple of ours. So we send it in the chat, but we also put it in the email as well as a follow-up. We're also putting it in the Facebook group. So I put it in like a million different places as one. You know, a lot of people will offer an incentive to take a survey. I'm not a huge believer in that because I feel like, I don't know how I feel about that. Sometimes I love it and sometimes I don't. I say more often, and then I phrase my wording to be like, hey, listen, if you got value from this workshop, we want to continue to bring you workshops. We want to continue to bring you great things. And so we want to know what you want, what's important to you. We find, I don't know, Noah's on the call today. I want to say we have like a 90% response rate on our, it might be off a little bit, but it's quite up there in terms of our survey responses. And so I think that maybe is it, because it's about, hey, listen, if you had fun with these toys and we want to make new things, we want to create new products and services that are going to be phenomenal for you. So please tell us your thoughts and then design the questions around that as well. Ali, anything you'd like to share on that?
No, I think that with everything you're talking about, I know that you have some really rich programs that could really help answer a lot of those questions. I know this is just the beginning, and obviously the way that COVID is treating this entire system in terms of retail is putting a real funk in the way that we're used to delivering that experience. So I would highly encourage you to look at some of the programs that Crystal has to offer, because I got to tell you, they're going to be rich with a lot of information that can really help you through that process.
Thanks, Ellie. And that's it, right? Is identifying, because sometimes I say, sometimes businesses have a scotoma. You've been doing, a scotoma is like a, you know, a funnel kind of look, and you've been doing things a certain way. And so sometimes when you're able to get that totally outside perspective, it just changes the way you create that model.
Yeah, I would say that my team and the way that we built it, so my background is design and I'm a product designer, and then my team is facilitators, educators. So everything we built has been with the customer's focus, but without a sales or marketing experience or thought to it. So we have a delight, like us to design something delightful, absolutely, but like how do we make that merging that or marrying that with like marketing and sales outcomes?
That's what we talked about earlier before, right? Not to work in silos, because that is problematic, because then you just seem very dysfunctional as an organization. Because somehow one of the bigger challenges, and I think the most important thing you do as a leader, is bring everybody together, because you could be doing something delightful, but if the other departments, they don't think that way, they're not delivering that experience, so your experience becomes extremely disjointed. So it really
it's aligning.
Exactly.
We're a 5-person team, and we don't have anyone on marketing, and our salesperson that we've hired, who was on the call today, doesn't necessarily have sales experience background. They have like community engagement, and their first day was the day COVID hit. So that was wonderful, just throwing them into the mix.
Well, what I'd say with sales, and your team is a perfect size, Alana, because you're like at that foundation side of things. What I would say when it comes to sales is, and I kind of touched on this in the beginning, is we're helping to improve someone's life. And so, but sales is a skill, and you really need to be able to learn, like, you know, when to ask for the sale and when not to, right? If you've given enough value, you know, it's give, and then ask, right? But what happens is, I think often we just give, and we don't ask, right? We don't ask because we're fearful of asking, or we're not sure. We don't want to be too pushy. And hey, if you've done the work to develop the relationship, then there's nothing pushy about it. You know what I mean? If you've been able to satisfy a pain, but that takes technique, that takes skill, that takes a process. There's a definite sales process that has to happen.
Yeah, and I think that's because my team is amazing, and the person that we hired for sales, like, they may not have gone to like sales college, but this person is phenomenal and has gotten incredible references also in their sales expertise in their last role. And I think, to your point, I think that's exactly where we're at, which is how do we be really mindful and thoughtful towards the process so that my team can like show up as they are without it feeling like we're forcing anything. It's just
and it's also not one person's responsibility. That's the other thing I will say. You've got a good sized team. It's teaching your entire team to be a part of the process. What role do they play in that sales process? Because, you know, 5 people are definitely better than 1, right? So it's making sure that's probably been my greatest strength when, you know, in the construction world, we had a team of 17 sales professionals, but so they were all trained in and out on how to sell, but we engaged our leadership team. So from our marketing people to our construction people, they were all selling in some aspect and funneling the sales to make sure that we're providing a great experience. But I think it's really important, especially with a team your size, it's kind of perfect actually to
we're
start.
at a really exciting moment also because we're hitting reset on so many things. So
Awesome. Well, thanks for coming. I hope that helped. And you know where to reach me. Ali, thank you so much for your time. And I know it's probably a late night there for you now. Go get a good night's sleep. But thank you so much.
Thank you.
Awesome.
Bye.
Take care, everyone. Thanks for being here. Bye-bye. Just you and me, kid.
Sweet.
What do you think?